We were to fly 35 missions. And at first they were giving you, if it's a long mission, they'd give you 2. But that never happened to me. I actually flew into enemy territory 50 times. 13 times were turnarounds, come back, the engines were quit, you couldn't make it. So I got 13 missions that I didn't have credit for. When I got to my 35th mission, I was asked by the commander, I was a captain then, why don't you stick around and fly? Because he'd been flying with me as a co-pilot. That's how he got his flying in. He said, I'll make you a major before you go home. So I flew 2 more missions. That was 37. Still didn't make major. 37th mission, I had a very good friend. It was his last mission, his 35th, and he got shot down. So I said, I quit. Now in my career as a combat pilot, on my 4th mission, I was called in by the base commander, and he said, you got a lot of flying time, 17s. I said, yes. He says, you trained in Langley Field as a lead pilot. I said, yes. He says, you're going to start leading on my 4th mission. On my 4th mission, I led the squadron, the 96th Squadron, into a place called Maribor, Czech Yugoslavia. They said, we're going in 19,000 feet. There's no flak there. Somebody's wrong, because that was absolutely the first time I'd seen the fire, not just smoke from the flak. And they shot the heck out of us. We had over 200 holes in the airplane when we got back. From 1920 to 1930 was good days, flapper days and all that. Everybody had money. And then all of a sudden, everything falls apart. And we were all in a Great Depression. But every one of us, we were all in the same boat. So we really didn't know how bad it was, but it was bad. Thistles, grasshoppers, army worms, it was just terrible. Heat, for months we had just nothing but heat. So everything dried up. And it was tough days, but we got through it all right. And then my dad moved into a little town called Arnegard, a Norwegian community. In this Norwegian community, there were 3 families that weren't Norwegian. It was my family, which was Childs, which is English. My mother's side was Baumann, which was German. And then there was an Irish family. The rest were all Norwegians. So I learned how to eat lutefisk and lefse and all that stuff. I lived a half a block from a school, so I had to go. And I remember every teacher I had from the 1st grade to the time I graduated. They were all good teachers. I remember every one of them. I had an incident in every class for some reason, so that's why I remember them. My main subject, of course, being music, and I was in singing and in the choirs, and I was always in the band because I was a drummer. I started playing drums when I was 8 years old, and I'm still playing drums at the age of 95. My first flight was in a bomb store. They'd come through the towns and they'd give you rides, and it was a Jenny, World War II Jenny. And I sat in the front seat with my dad, and that was my first flight. My brother and my cousins built an airplane, and they needed a pilot. So they put me in the airplane. I pushed it down the hill, and the plane crashed because it didn't take off. And my mother was so angry. And I was 6 years old then. And that was my first plane crash. Then in 1927, Lindbergh went across the ocean, and that was a big thing. So I put 2 chairs up, and I sat with a blanket over me, and I flew the Atlantic Ocean day in, day out. Though I really flew it on instruments, I was sitting under the blanket. As a kid, I used to come running out when their airmail planes would fly over, and I would holler at them and wave at them. And so my interest in flying had always been there. Things got kind of tough. Yet I was in the middle. I always felt that nobody liked me. I had 2 sisters and a brother older, my 2 sisters younger. My mother was busy taking care of my younger sisters, and I was kind of left out in the boondocks, and I just thought they didn't like me. And so at the age of 14, I left home and jumped on a freight train and went to the West Coast. And then at the age of 15, I come back, went back to school. Age of 15, I'm back on the freight trains, back to school. 16, back on the freight trains. And my dad and mother never knew where I was at. My poor mother, she just wondered what's happening to that boy, where is he at? So I was gone all the time. I can remember the train whistling at night. When I hear a train now, I get that lonely feeling. And I was scared, but there was other kids along with us. There was a bunch of kids riding freight trains. And all of us got together and hung together. The hobos, they called them hobos, but the hobos were the men that were out looking for jobs to send money back home. And you had your bums and you had your tramps. So the tramps were the people that they lived. That was their life. You know, we had what we call a hobo jungle. And that's where everybody hung around. And they wouldn't let the bums come in because they didn't like them. My dad says, you're not riding freight trains anymore. You're staying home. You've got to straighten out your life. You're going to CMTC. CMTC was civilian military training. It was Army. We were dressed in Army uniforms. He says, maybe they'll straighten you out. So I joined a band because I was an excellent drummer, so I joined a band. This was in Bismarck, North Dakota, and a big train carnival came through. And I went down, a bunch of us went down to see the carnival. And we were going up the Midway, and I heard all this noise, and I look up, and there's a little band up there beating the heck out of it, and some girlies out there dancing. I knew the musicians in the band, because I'd played with them when I was in dance bands. And they hollered at me, Leroy, we need a drummer. Well, the girl who played the piano in the group used to live at our house. She was a ranching girl, and she lived at her house in the wintertime, so she knew my dad well. And called my father and said they needed me. So he released me. I got an honorable discharge from the CMTC and joined the carnival and played the drums for the Girly Girly Show. My dad sent a wire and said, you better come home fast. You have to go to school anyhow. but your mother's dying. So I came home. I rode a freight train from Minneapolis to Bismarck, and I walked down to the hospital, and I must have been, skinny as a rail and dirty from freight train. I didn't recognize my mother. She was just a skeleton. I don't know what she thought when she saw me. I flunked chemistry. You couldn't graduate without having all this. So they said you flunked chemistry. So I just went down the highway and started hitchhiking. I was leaving town. And a young girl come running across the field and hollered at me. She says, "Leroy," and everybody called me Leroy then. "Chemistry teacher wants to see you." Chemistry teacher was a lady. She was in charge of all the music, and I used to sing solos with the groups and the dramatics. And she says, "I'm going to give you another test. I'm going to ask you 2 questions." She asked me 2 questions that she knew that I knew the answer. She says, "You passed." So I graduated from high school. That's the only way I did. Then I hitchhiked down and went to college with $19 in my pocket. I was playing in dance bands when I was going to college, and I was cleaning the floor in the auditorium. That's how it was. And so I joined the National Guard in 1940 to make some extra money. They paid you $2 if you went to a meeting. That was a lot of money. Well, February 1941, they blew the bugle, federalized the 164th Infantry in North Dakota. Now I'm in the infantry as a light machine gunner. And they moved us out of North Dakota to Camp Cleveland, Louisiana, where they had maneuvers all summer down there. And I was a buck private for a whole year, never made a stripe. I think I peeled more potatoes and did more latrine duty than anybody else. And I saw these airplanes flying, and I thought, hey, that's for me. So they had a sign up on the bulletin board they needed aviation cadets. So I applied. Well, I passed everything. Then they said you have to take a mental exam. Well, then I knew I was out because I'd never studied in college, so I thought, that's it. "Have you had any college?" I said, "Yes, got 3 years. You don't have to take the mental exam." So I was accepted as the aviation cadet. And I was already flying when Pearl Harbor started. We were all sitting around, and we'd been flying, as cadets. And we were sitting around in the barracks, and the radio was on. And Roosevelt was telling all about the disastrous deal that happened in Pearl Harbor. And I thought to myself, where's Pearl Harbor? I had no idea where Pearl Harbor was. But we found out this, and everybody said, well, looks like we're going to war. Oh, I was a fighter pilot. I went through, everything I went through was fighters. And when I graduated, single engine, then I got into P-40s. And I have a story to tell you that in Eglin Field, I was doing my gunnery practice as a cadet. And I saw this runway down there, and they had, right across the runway, had a big marker. and I saw these B-25s staggering off the ground. I thought, what in the world are they doing? Two weeks later, they hit Tokyo. So I saw Doolittle's group practicing. I graduated in July 3rd, 1942, from Flying Cadets. The next day, I married the girl from college. She came down on 4th of July. They didn't have any fireworks or anything on the 4th of July then because it was war. But I always say that I lost my independence on the 4th of July because I got married. My first assignment was instructing British cadets. So immediately I went into the training command, and I stayed in that darn training command, instructing. And then from there I went into B-25s and B-26s, and then the next thing you know, I'm flying B-17s and B-24s, and I'm instructing in them. And I thought, this is enough of this stuff. I want to go to combat. So on the bulletin board, they said they needed B-24 pilots to go to the South Pacific. So 2 o'clock in the morning, they took a picture of my wife and my baby and myself. I said goodbye at 6 o'clock in the morning, put us on a commercial aircraft. It was that important. Flew us to Fresno, California. We got there, and they said, what are you guys doing here? Nobody ever found the orders. Do you have any B-17 pilots in your group? Oh, yes. So then they sent me to Lincoln, Nebraska, and I picked up a crew, trained with the crew, and was headed for combat. My next stop was Langley Field. When I arrived there, they took my navigator and my bombardier away from me. So here I am sitting with 8 men in the crew, just myself, co-pilot, and the rest of the enlisted men. I was called in by the commander. He says, Lieutenant, we need you here. You're more important as an instructor to stay on this base and instruct people in radar bombing. I said, that's not fair. About a week later, I was called in, and the commander says, your crew really thinks highly of you. I said, well, yes, we live together, we train together. He said, they have convinced me that you're the best pilot in the country, and they want you to be their pilot in combat so you can go. So then I went overseas with my crew. We left Langley Field, and they gave us our own airplane, a brand new airplane. Everybody had to name their planes. So I had a Democratic crew. And so I said, okay, guys, what do you want to name it? Gravel Gertie. Now, Gravel Gertie was a skinny, long-haired, blonde, homely woman on Dick Tracy's comics. So they picked Gravel Gertie. My wife wasn't too happy because she said most pilots had their wife's names. So our plane was Gravel Gertie. We took off at 2 o'clock in the morning, got up to 9,000 feet, called in, says we're headed across. They wished us luck. The radio operator picked up music, and it was a woman singing, I'll Be Seeing You. And here we're sitting there, headed for combat, with that beautiful singing voice, I'll be seeing you. And I was thinking, here are these guys all sitting in the back, sitting in that B-17 and listening to that music and thinking about their loved ones we were leaving. And so we flew across the Atlantic Ocean and looked down, and there was water and water. One time I looked down, I saw this ship down there, and I thought, how in the world is that ship getting across that ocean by itself without being torpedoed? There's a little spot in the ocean called Azore Islands, and we hit that right on the head. That's the first time I ever landed on a mat runway. So when I landed, I thought I forgot to put my gear down because it was so noisy. And that was the Azore Islands. From there, we went to Morocco, and then we went to Tunisia, and we went into Sicily, and finally ended up in Italy and Foggia. And they took our airplane away from us, and we had babied that airplane. That was our plane. The next day, the plane was on a mission and was shot down. So we went to our base, which was 20 miles out of Foggia. Nothing but olive trees and mud, and we lived in tents. And in the wintertime, it was terrible because it was snow and mud. And that's where I flew 37 missions out of there. My first combat mission, I was really excited. We flew as a co-pilot with somebody who'd been flying combat, was a pro, I was all excited watching that flag come up. I thought, man, this is combat. This is something to see. I'm looking at the flag coming up, paying more attention to that than watching everything's going on. I was all excited about my first mission. I thought that was really something to see. Well, second mission wasn't so good, and the third and the fourth. From then on, I found out what combat was all about, but the first mission was exciting to me. We had long missions, like Bleckenhammer. That was an oil factory. It was 650 miles from our base to Bleckenhammer, and 650 miles back. So we had long missions. But we went in and bombed fighter bases, marshalling yards, which was railroads, awful lot of fuel. We bombed many oil factories and stuff. So we had a lot of cleaning up to do down there where the 18th Air Force couldn't reach. And so we were busy. We were to fly 35 missions. And at first they were giving you, if it's a long mission, they'd give you 2. But that never happened to me. I actually flew into enemy territory 50 times. 13 times were turnarounds, come back, engines would quit, you couldn't make it. So I got 13 missions that I didn't have credit for. When I got to my 35th mission, I was asked by the commander, I was a captain then, why don't you stick around and fly? Because he'd been flying with me as a co-pilot. That's how he got his flying in. He said, I'll make you a major before you go home. So I flew 2 more missions. That was 37. Still didn't make major. 37th mission, I had a very good friend. It was his last mission, his 35th, and he got shot down. So I said, I quit. Now, in my career as a combat pilot, on my 4th mission, I was called in by the base commander, and he said, you got a lot of flying time, 17s. I said, yes. He says, you trained in Langley Field as a lead pilot. I said, yes. He says, you're going to start leading on my 4th mission. In my 4th mission, I led the squadron, the 96th Squadron, into a place called Maribor, Czech Yugoslavia. And they said, we're going in 19,000 feet. There's no flak there. well, somebody's wrong, because that was absolutely the first time I'd seen the fire, not just smoke from the flak. And they shot the heck out of us. We had over 200 holes in our airplane when we got back. We lost an engine, and it broke off, and we couldn't feather it, so it was out there just flying by itself. And the only way we could get rid of it was we pulled the throttles back, put the flaps down, climb, and it just like a brake, and the prop would fly off because it was flying free. And that was the way we get rid of those props. So that was a tough mission. And then after that, I ended up flying 20 leads, squadron, and then I went to group lead. In my crew, my engineer was shot. He was killed. My co-pilot was seriously wounded. My radio operator was seriously wounded, and the waist gunner was seriously wounded. And I came back alive. We were kids. We had a lot of friends who were going down around us. You'd see a plane here, a plane there, blow up and that. We never knew the next day if we were going to get back or not. We had a dance band over there, a jazz band, and I was playing drums with it. We'd come back from a mission, get something to eat. We'd go to one of the Listerman clubs, and we'd play till 2 o'clock in the morning and drink that terrible cognac and juice. Next morning, I'd go on a mission, and I'd put 100% oxygen on to clear my head before I'd take off. Yeah, I was scared at times, but I guess we were just kids. I flew back one time, and Blackhammer went in, and the colonel was flying, and I was flying on his wing. They call it deputy lead. And it went across, his bombardier didn't quite get set up, so flak came up and knocked my engine out. And we went around and come back in the second time, which wasn't good. They were really ready for us then. Dropped their bombs, and they knocked out my second engine. So there goes the formation, and I'm dropping back. All of a sudden, I'm up over Blechheimer, Germany, 650 miles from my base, all by myself with my crew. That was it. And we struggled to get back. I had a new navigator that had never flown with me before, and he gave me a heading, and I looked at this heading, and he was taking me to Switzerland, where we could be interned the rest of the war. I told the boys, I said, Mike, my co-pilot, Mike and I think we can get you out of enemy territory where we can bail out. I said, we don't want to go to Switzerland. Nope. Okay. I think we can get over the Alps. Well, we flew through the Alps because I didn't have enough power to stay above them. I said, there's the Adriatic Sea. We can ditch. Or we can go to Vis, which was an English base where people would go to crash land. I said, I can see the Italian coast. I said, we can make it there and bail out. I said, hey, I see our base. I think we can make it. We flew over the tent area about 1,000 feet with 2 engines out and everybody looking up at us, and we were about 2 hours behind the regular formation that had landed. I was all set up for the landing. My 3rd engine quit. I had 1 engine left, so I can tell everybody I landed a B-17 on 1 engine. Just a story, but I did land on 1 engine. But got the Distinguished Flying Cross for that mission. In the wintertime, we couldn't fly because it was so bad. So they'd send up what they call the Lone Wolf mission. which they'd take one airplane from each squadron, and you'd fly up on instruments just to let the Germans know we were still around. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm up over Germany on instruments, and the radar navigator says, our radar's out. I said, what do you mean? He said, we don't have any radar. I'm up over enemy territory on instruments and no radar, no way to get home. So I just turned it around 180 degrees, went in and landed and just got to sleep, and the squadron commander's shaking me, waking me up. He called me a coward. I said, why? He said, you came back. I said, why don't you go check the radar and see? Well, he did, and he found out it was out. But you know, that guy never apologized to me for that. I said, give me the next one. So 2 days later, flew up there, and when we got over the target, the weather cleared. Man, the flak was coming up, and fighters are coming up. So I dropped the bombs, and we headed for the clouds, and they chased us, and I kept flying in the clouds and came home and got my second DFC for that one. So in northern Italy, they still had the German troops were up there in northern Italy. And the Fifth Army and the British Army were trying to keep them from escaping. So the last two missions, 15th Air Force was directed to go up there and stop those troops from escaping. I quit flying and got on a boat and went home, and then the war was over. That's how 15th Air Force finished, was to just get those German troops from escaping and going back into Germany. I met a B-24 pilot on the way back, and we become very close friends. And in New Jersey, we get off the boat, and they had a train, of course, was heading for Minneapolis. I was the ranking officer, so they made me train commander, and I was supposed to keep those guys straight and level, you know. I just let them have a ball. I never stopped anybody from doing anything. The train was wonderful. We got to Minneapolis, and our wives met us. He had a young wife, and my wife. We had a nice time that evening and out. 9 months later, they had a daughter, and I had a son, 2 days apart. We should have named them Minneapolis and Champaign, because that's the way it ended up. Exactly 2 days apart. I just came back. I was real excited because I had orders to fly B-36s. And that to me was something else. And when I got back to go to 36s, the guy I was with, he went to 36s, and they changed my orders and put me in a ferry command. And what I did then was fly these beat-up airplanes from all over the United States, and we just go get them and fly them and go back and fly another one and get on an airplane and bump somebody off, because our orders were number one priority. And that's what I did for some time. And then 3 years later, the Berlin Airlift hit. I was flying against the enemy. And 3 years later, I was flying for the enemy against the Russians. Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill got together. They knew the war was about over, and they decided, what are we going to do with Germany? So there was the decision they were going to divide Germany up into sectors. American sector, British sector, Russian sector. Well, what about the French? And Stalin said, that's fine, but take it out of your sector, not mine. So then Roosevelt died, and poor old Truman comes along, and he's got the whole world on his shoulder. Truman had maybe 2 or 3 meetings with Roosevelt. He never knew anything about the atomic bomb. He knew nothing about what was going on over in Europe. And so they had a meeting, and it was Truman, Stalin, and Churchill, where they decided to divide up into 3 sectors. And then Berlin was the city that they divided up into 3 sectors. And fortunately, the only airport in Berlin, Tempelhof, was in the Allied, in our sector. So what happened then, Stalin wanted to take over the world. He definitely wanted to have Europe. So he decided the only way he could do that was blockade, starve the West Berliners out, and make them come over to the East Berlin. And before that, when they went into Berlin, the Russians, they took everything out of Berlin that they could take and shipped it back to Russia. And the Mongolian troops came in, and they had free run of all the women. They raped hundreds and thousands of German women, West Berlin women. They'd take the faucets out of the apartment and take it home thinking they could hook it up and they'd have running water. You know, that's how dumb they were. Stalin said, okay. So he blockaded all the trains, all the trucks, and all the planes that came in on the water. But they had set up a corridor. There was a corridor flying in from southern, there's a corridor flying in from the northern part, and there's a corridor flying out of Tempelhof. And that was written in stone. Well, when he did that, General Clark and Truman said, we'll fly the food in. And of course, Stalin laughed at him, thinking that would never happen. They first started with C-47s, and they just had a mess up there. They had no control of the planes. They were coming in, and they were stacked and trying to get in. And C-47s could only handle about 3,000 tons, so we were supposed to get about 5,000 tons of food in a day. And they couldn't do it. So they brought in C-54s from all over. And I was called up. I was flying out of Washington, D.C. in C-54s, and I was called up and went over to fly in C-54s, and we could carry 10 tons. So for 11 solid months, we flew food into Berlin day and night. Airplane landed every 3 minutes an airplane would land, and every 3 minutes a plane would take off. I was told to take off at a certain time. I better be there taking off at a certain time. I was supposed to be over here at a certain time. I better be there. When we flew over a place called Fulda, the radio place, that's when we entered the Russian zone. We had to be there exactly on time. There had to be an airplane 3 minutes ahead of us, and we'd listen. When he'd call in, 3 minutes later, we had to be there. We had to be at our altitude. And flying down that corridor, there were 45 airplanes at all times in that corridor flying. There were 5,500, 6,000, 6,500, and 7. And it was just like a conveyor belt. It's just constant. And those airplanes in there all the time. Then the Russians come up and they'd fly at us. with their jets, you know, and fire above us, fire below us, put up balloons, and at nighttime they put searchlights in their eyes. Just, we had 700 and some incidents from the Russians on that corridor flying in, but we just kept flying. They brought in the best radar ground control approach guys that you could get. They had these shacks set up at the end of the runway. And then we were on solid instruments, and they'd say, okay, we've got you, no communication, just listen to us. And they had us on a blip. And they say, okay, you're on the glide path. You get a little high. Why don't you just bring it down? You're going to the left a little bit, bring it back over. And we just sit back there like we were in a rocking chair and did what they told us to do. Had all the confidence in the world in them. After the war, all the German people had nothing. They didn't have a government. They didn't have homes. They didn't have food. 2 o'clock in the morning, Stalin would turn the lights on for electricity on for 2 hours. Then he shut it off. And all the rest of the day, they had no electricity, no heat. They were starving to death and freezing to death, and they had nothing. But I have to say this, if it wasn't for the West Berlin people, we would never accomplish the Berlin Airlift, because they said, we do not want anything to do with communism, and we will stick with you. And they came and they worked with us. They unloaded our airplanes. The minute I stopped that airplane, the door opened there. The truck was right there. And there were 10 guys, 10 Germans, come in and started unloading. They had a contest between them. And one time they unloaded those airplanes. One time they unloaded 10 tons of coal in 10 minutes. The first time I landed and I stepped out of my cockpit, and this great big German come up to me. He shook my hand, and he was dirty, filthy cold, you know. He had tears in his eyes. And he says, Dankeschön, Dankeschön. Then I knew why I was there. And if it hadn't been for the West Berliners, who decided they were going to stick it out with us, I don't think we'd ever been successful. We lost 31 airmen, and the British lost quite a few. There were 71 people killed on the Berlin Airlift. Elected me president, and I was 94 years old. And I said, you guys are nuts. You better have a good vice president, because like Roosevelt, I can die in office, you know. And We have a reunion every year, and our reunion this year is in Oklahoma City, and it's the 25th reunion. I try to keep it alive, and everybody else, I give many speeches about it, and it's got to be kept alive. The Berlin Airlift, to West Berlin, people just, man, they see us and they put their arms around us, they cry. There was a little lady, an elderly lady, old, not as old as I am, but she was elderly, came up to me and she had a book and she was showing it to me. And so I was looking at it and she was crying. The next thing you know, I had tears running out of my eyes. And there was cameras all around taking pictures of me. Here I'm standing there crying with this Berlin Airlift lady. It was quite emotional because we really did something great when we saved their lives. There's no doubt about it.
And so came that early April morning at an air base in Colorado. 40 flying fortresses line the apron. 4,000 men march out for a final inspection. They've trained long and hard for these ships, the 400 men who fly them, and the 3,600 who work to keep them flying. Now the 351st Bombardment Group is ready. By the dawn's early light, it assembles for overseas combat. You're on your way, Joe. This is it. With his staff, Colonel William A. Hatcher, Jr. looks over his 4 squadrons. You feel the old man is proud of him. He finds no fault with you today, nor you with him. You'd fly his wing to hell and gone. Sergeant Philip J. Halls, top turret gunner from Springfield, Missouri. He feels that way. So does his pal Kenny, Sergeant Kenneth L. Halls, ball turret gunner from Perkins, Oklahoma. Related? No. They think they might have been several generations ago back in Germany, but now, just 2 guys with the same uncle, Sam. Meet their pilot, Lieutenant Theodore Argyropoulos of Redding, California. Argy's brother is in the Air Corps, too. Their dad was born in Greece. Yes, the Greeks have a word for it. Fight. Their bombardier, Lieutenant Daniel F. Stevens of Chicago. He can bat 1,000 with a Norden bomb sight. Sergeant Paul J. Posty, ball turret gunner. His dad came from Italy. Paul was formerly a pastry cook. He's got 1 brother in the Navy. Another, a Marine, missing in action. Here's Sergeant Tim Tutchett, tail gunner from Mariana Lake, New Mexico. On the reservation, they named him Aki. That means boy in Navajo. Uncle Sam's boy, too. A few last-minute instructions, and we're off. The compass points northeast. Take another look down there. That's your part of the earth. Out of that desert, those mountains, those fields has grown the American way of life. What you're fighting for. You remember the colonel's quiet words? Men, The enemy has asked for it. Let him have it. Seek no quarter, nor give any beyond reason. Be firm, be just, and Godspeed you all. 8.5 hours out of Newfoundland, another sunrise. It's rising out of the red of battle, this sun. But 40 more B-17s, 3 minutes apart, have roared across the Atlantic night. The Irish coast looks up to say, top of the morning. And a lake in the Ulster Highlands gives the navigator a checkpoint. Off the Scottish coast, Dernya Craig is a signal for right rudder south, across the English Midlands. Pilots are impatient with lack of sleep. Head up, boy. Pour on the coal. Let's get there. Yes, it must have been a lot different when the wings carried swastikas instead of these big white stars. Don't worry, folks. We're dropping nothing today, just our hats in the ring. Hello, Missy. We brought something for you and Brother. Chewing gum and chocolate bars. And there's a crate of oranges in the ball turret. Ah, there, Grandpa. We'll be seeing you for a glass of that. And there's the base. 400 acres of dispersal areas. The RAF is on hand to welcome us. Set her down, Colonel. Set her down. The 351st becomes part of the 8th Air Force. We've reached the battlefront. The combat crews move into English barracks. They give them those simple, quiet names for which Americans are famous. Two weeks later, the ground crews arrive. Hi, Gus. Great boat trip, huh? Only 7 days and without any escort, too, See any submarines? Oh, 100 of them, huh? Well, I guess you ought to know, Gus. They tell me you was hanging over the rail all the way. Next day, big doings. Class A uniform. Shine those buttons. His Royal Highness the Duke of Gloucester, brother to the King of England, drops in and is greeted by the old man. What's that? Sergeant Major says the RAF is handing over the field to us.
On behalf of the Air Ministry, I hand over this aerodrome complete with buildings and equipment for your safekeeping.
It gives me a great pleasure to accept this station on behalf of the United States Army Air Force.
Okay, RAF. If we can fit your boots, we'll walk it straight, brother. Another surprise visitor. General Arnold himself doing a world inspection flight. He tells you you've got a tough assignment. This is one head man who knows and doesn't kid you. We have the privilege to meet General Aker, Commanding General, 8th Air Force.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, glad to see you. How are you coming to this camera training film here?
Well, it's a little early to tell yet, sir, but we're turning the camera on everything and everybody.
Well, I know what General Arnold had in mind in having you make this gunnery picture. Captain Gable, our gunners are already the best in the business.
But if they were only 10% better, it'd cost the Germans another 100 fighters a month.
So fire away, gunners. Plenty more practice before that first mission. The sleeve is a forked wolf. Track him. If you don't, he might get you, and you might have to bail out. Over the channel, perhaps. But if you do, a Spitfire of the Air Sea Rescue Service is bound to spot you. A stubborn, tough gang, this outfit. They'll go after you any time, any place. They picked up men 3 miles off the French coast with Heine defense batteries screaming, "No, you don't." Their answer is always, "Sorry, boy, we will." You work on your identification of aircraft. Over here, it's with a real McCoy, such as this captured Ju-88. Huh? There it is. Everything up forward, punched under the nose. But the Canadian pilot says it's a sweet flying ship. Yes, sir. A dangerous all-purpose aircraft. Or the Heinkel 111K. He's a bad hombre, but he makes good airplanes, gentlemen. These will be a happy sight in days to come. Your fighter escort. That big barrel nose job, circled in white. Your own American P-47, the Thunderbolt, side by side with a graceful spit. These are what you don't shoot at. You hear daily lectures on security given by Major Scott, your Scotch-born intelligence officer.
Let's stop kidding ourselves. This flying field is only 20 minutes from the battlefront. The dumb spies have all been shot. The smart ones are still living. And you will run into one of them tonight at the Red Lion pub.
And if you go to the pub,
remember, £1 is not $1, but $4. And that equals 20 shillings. 1 shilling equals 12 pennies, which equals 20 cents. 1 English penny equals 2 American pennies. And don't throw your pennies around.
Major, seems to me the paper in this town is not very durable.
What do you mean durable? I've had this one for 20 years.
What is it, Fred? What is it? One of those bitter lessons you learn in training. Flying close formation in rough air at low altitude is no good, gentlemen. Save that for high altitude, when you're headed to the target. Next morning, we crawl out of the sack to find Britishers on the field again. Big Halifax bombers that had blasted Berlin during the night. Their own field was closed in by weather, so they dropped in on us for breakfast. Say, Percy, how's the ack-ack over there? Rough? Oh, not half bad, Yank. Well, cheerio, lads. Thanks for the ham and eggs. So long, Percy, old boy. We'll be finding out for ourselves one of these days. That day arrives. The order comes over the teletype. Communications clerk carries it to Colonel Milton, operations officer. To Colonel Burns, deputy commander. The old man is on the phone. Then in the briefing room.
And summarizing, remember your route in to this DR point, where you go northeast to avoid this black area. P-47 will escort you to about this point on the way in, and Spit 9 will meet you about here on the way out and escort you all the way home.
And now the weather officer. Weather's plenty important.
You'll probably have to go over and above the altitude that you're scheduled to fly, 23,000 feet.
From the ID to the target, the winds will be very strong tailwinds, and your ground speed should be, well, about 250, 260 miles an hour. The visibility is good everywhere east of that cold front, and the temperature at the target should be comparatively warm, minus 25 degrees centigrade.
Today is your baptism of fire. If Lieutenant Argyropoulos ever felt responsibility, he feels it now. In the armament shop, his crew is picking up their guns.
Now remember, fellas, don't let them get too close trying for a sure kill. Your main job is to bring these airplanes back. You got plenty of ammunition. Keep them out there at long range.
Oh, we know. They've given you an easy hump. Only 3.5 hours in and out. What they call a milk run. But you'll remember this first mission. You don't admit it now. You wouldn't show it for the world. But later you find out everybody else felt the same way you did. Flash order from Wing headquarters. Wing wants 3 more ships added to the high group. 3 more bomb bays have to be loaded. You've got to step on it. Positions in the formation change. This doesn't concern Sergeants Kenny and Phil Hulls. Gunners think only of smooth-working guns and plenty of ammunition. Ammunition's cheap. 6 cents worth of 50 caliber wanged into the cockpit of a Messerschmitt. That's what will bring you home. What did that weatherman say? 30 below over the target? Electrically heated suits. The Air Corps dresses for every occasion. Yes, everything has to be right, brother. Check everything. Every strap tight. Every buckle set. Everything understood. You get into your flak suit. Mighty heavy material, but it wears well, the man says. A thermos of hot coffee. The joker who brings it says it'll help keep you awake. Hard straps on his throat mic. Over this intercom system, he'll be able to talk to every man in the ship. And they can talk to him. They'll be talking for keeps today. Well, that flare from the tower ought to be along any minute now. There it is. Start engines. The colonel's already been on missions with seasoned outfits. Today, he leads you on your berth. Second flare. Start taxi. You punch wing to wing at the start of the runway. Easy now, slow. Cut somebody's tail off. Rev her up, but ride those brakes hard, Brett. Roger. You keep your eye on the tower. Take off. The old man leans full on his throttle. At 15-second intervals, you follow. You fall over the field. You're on your way. The rest of the outfit sits down to wait.
Go ahead, Mike. Your deal. Come on, I cut.
Oh, okay. What time do they due back, do you know?
Scotty said around 5:20.
Gosh, I sure hope they all...
Hey, how many are you dealing? I'm in.
Sorry.
We know, Mike. Everybody's sweating them out.
You mean what's coming over those trees, Major? No, that's not them. Just a flock of crows.
I was a truck driver on Canal Street, but I never felt like this before.
I ride the ambulances. I gotta be casual. You know, carefree and easy, like the doc.
Listen, wise guys, talk to us. The ground crew for each ship. We'll tell you how to feel.
Okay, here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14. That's the stuff. 17, 18, 19, 20. Here's the old man and Jenny. Yeah, that's your ship, Corporal. You can uncross those fingers now. 627. That's Joe Frischholz. A little hot, Joe, but you're a hot pilot. Here's Kegel at 742. Chalk him up. Here's old Zip at 879. He's got number 4 prop feather, too. Here's 953 with number 2 out. And look, Jim couldn't get his bomb bay doors closed either. Oh, the old OK sign, huh, Sergeant? Must have laid him right on the nose. Yep. Oldie says he saw him land right on the MPI. Nice bombing, Steve. That's from me, Pete Provenzali, your navigator. Okay, Phil. Chalk up number 1. Nice driving, Captain Arge. You sure know your evasive action. Uh-oh. Harry caught something. A 20 millimeter right across his radio. Arge looks at a hole in the horizontal stabilizer. Nothing at all. Hi, Pete. Come on, let's stow these guns and get to interrogation. Yeah, you're feeling pretty cocky. Nobody blames you. It's great to get that first one over with. But this one was pretty easy, remember? You got a lot more to go. Longer ones, tougher ones. Take it easy, boys. Take it easy. Back from the raid comes Major Louis Nowak, Group Surgeon. Doc flew this first mission to study the physical reactions of men in combat. He didn't have to go, but that's the kind of a doc he is. And today, on the walls of the officers' mess, begins the chronological record of the group's success. Coutray, a German fighter base in Belgium. Annie doesn't live there anymore. In the meantime, we find Kenny and Phil cleaning their guns in front of the armament shop.
Hello, Captain. Hello, fellas. Well, how was it?
You know, Cap, I don't think these Germans like us.
Are you ready to go again? Sure. Got to get this thing over. Did you learn anything you didn't know before?
Plenty. At home, they told us the Jerry's made most of their attacks on the tail. Today, most of them are on the nose.
Yeah. Most of the time I had my turret pointed at 12 o'clock. I must have fired 1,000 rounds.
Let's go all these guns, Ken. All set?
Yes, check those guns. You had plenty more use for them the next 2 weeks. Emden, Heel, Wilhelmshaven, St. Nazaire, Raymond. And every swastika stands for a Hun pilot that asked for it and got it. Came days when enemy targets were hidden by weather. So the more energetic of you found relaxation in peaceful combat, while the more studious men discussed tactical charts and maps, or something.
Could you give me a pound of ten on that?
Good. But the more cultured of the group, like Kenny and Phil, went into the nearby villages to visit the quaint old cathedrals, churches and shops in the English countryside surrounding us. Or on days when they were confined near the base, the old cathedrals and shops would come out to see them. This little shop wants to go home. Meanwhile, back at the kitchen, we find a very unhappy and angry man.
Hello, Captain Gable. What's this? I thought you were a bald turd gunner.
I thought so too, sir, but I've been grounded.
Oh, your pants crept up on you, huh?
Yes, sir. They found I was chef at the Brown Derby in Hollywood, and now they have me in the mess making a cake tonight for the officers' party.
Nothing you can do about getting back into combat?
I don't think so, Captain.
Well, Sergeant, remember this. There are two kinds of cake. One of them's good, and the other one, I'll be seeing.
But gals or parties, you're still fighting a war. And you're getting mighty good at it. Nobody knows it better than the sucker who started it, little Adolf.
Well, Sergeant Poston, back into combat, huh?
Yes, sir.
How'd you manage?
Well, sir, you know what you said. There are two kinds of cake.
So Poste's back in the air with you. You're blowing factories and power plants 1,000 feet in the air.
Okay, how about you, Winchester?
Well, I have a little excitement.
What happened?
I have a little present here for you.
What's that, black?
Came in the side of the radio room and hit the buckle on my parachute. It's down on the floor.
Who had this plane?
Phil.
What time was that?
It was about $1,600.
$1,600. Where did it happen?
You know, that was
It's right here, just east of us.
East of Austin.
That's right.
Who'll confirm that?
Well, I saw it. I confirmed it.
After he fired it, came down and passed underneath our left wing
And exploded right underneath us. Nobody bailed out.
And when you hand out punishment like this, you've got to take some, too. The day you got back from over Villa Coublé, just outside of Paris, was plenty rugged. Signal flares. That means wounded aboard. What's tough about it was you had to bring your bombs back. You couldn't drop them. When you reached a target, you found it closed over by weather. That's an order when you're flying over France. No indiscriminate bombing. Just German installation. Colonel Milton, who led the raid, is a tired, sick guy this day. And nobody blames him. He had to fight his way 3 hours in, 3 hours out, under constant attack by over 200 Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs. He lost men, he lost ships, and couldn't strike his blow. That's rough. Here's Peter Provenzali. Remember him? Arge's navigator? Today he got a 20 millimeter through the leg. The control cable shot in two, but some wounded gunner wouldn't quit. He tied them together. Who's in there? Both waist gunners, huh? The docs are working on them now. One's pretty bad. Bulletproof glass. Well, Sergeant, guess you live right. Yes, the bombardiers with their first aid kits had plenty of work today, crawling back through the bomb bays, trying to keep a steady hand in the rough going. Many of your pals left you that day.
Home, home on the range, were they deer and the antelope lay, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range, were the deer and the antelope play.
Bring it up, you guys. There's another loading. But if you happen to catch one in the wrong place, they've got a pretty nice repair shop. Ever see a sergeant flip a tulip in a lieutenant's face? Well, you just did. Yeah, while the gang at the base carries on, you can take it easy for a while. How they biting, Sarge? Nice fat pike, huh? This one's been stretched a little. We drop in on Lieutenant Bob Wallace to see how he's doing.
How you feeling? Kate, I'll be out of here in a couple of weeks. Oh, Miss O'Neill, it's Captain Gable.
How do you do, Captain Gable?
How do you do, Miss O'Neill? Wally, I never got a chance to ask you. Tell me just kind of what happened when you got hit.
Well, we'd left the target and we were on our way home. We got to the post and we had our guns stowed away. A couple of FWs snuck up on us and gave us a good berth.
Oh, I see. You had your guns stowed away, huh?
That's right.
That's a little early, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
It's not a very good idea to relax over here until you get back to your own base. Is that right?
That's right.
Well, go ahead. Then what happened?
Well, after I got hit, I climbed down out of the pilot's compartment and got the top turret gunner to help me down into Bombay. He gave me some first aid, put a tourniquet on my leg, and took a good job of it.
Well, that's fine. I guess you think it's a good idea for these combat crews to have first aid training then, is that right?
I sure do.
Yeah. So, Wally, what do you think of the B-17s? Your instruments, your guns, and all the rest of the equipment they're giving you to fight this war with?
It's the best equipment in the world.
That's good. Say, I hear you got your Purple Heart, too.
Yes, Colonel Kendall was in the other day and gave it to me. I was more nervous than when those FWs were diving on it.
Well, outside of that, are they treating you all right around here?
Did you hear that, Miss O'Neill?
Wally's doing okay. Back at the base, they repair your ships, too. The busiest legs in the outfit belong to Major Ace Aikens, the S-4.
This airplane's got to fly in the morning. It's going to be ready.
Oh, Major? I don't know, sir.
Well, let's have no ceremony. Let's get the fans turning.
Keep the fans turning. The slogan of the ground crew. They work hard, these boys. They work 90 hours straight without sleep. But your ship is their baby, and she's got to fly. And if you need to repair a few thoughts, Sunday's always a nice day for it, if there's no raid scheduled. You know, kid, this church was built 900 years ago. Over at the hospital, Father O'Connor celebrates the Mass. The boys receive Holy Communion. Here's Pete Provenzale. He's leaving the hospital tomorrow. Next day, Pete's back to work. The outfit's back to work. The 351st is still flying, Adolf.
Attention to order. General Order number 93. Headquarters 8th Bomber Command. 11th July, 1943.
You can't get out of it, you know. They pin medals on you for this sort of work. It's not so much a thrill for you. The big kick it will hand the folks back home. The Silver Star, the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Soldier's Medal. Dad and Ma and that certain girl. They'll cut out the clippings and drive the neighbors nuts. Bombardier Stevens, the DFC, because he's been batting 1,000 over Germany. And one to Pilot Peters. He had to ditch in the channel, but his coolness and courage saved his crew. Bill Halls gets 2 clusters on his Air Medal for straight shooting. DFC to Tim Touching. A Focke-Wulf and a Mountain Lion? No difference, he says. The control wires were shot in 2, so the DFC to Sergeant Del Conte, who tied them together, his hands punctured with flak. A Silver Star finds itself next to Provenzale's Purple Heart. He refused first aid till the Jerry fighters quit and stuck to his gun. Day the group led the wing over Schweinfurt, Colonel Hatcher was air to him, the Silver Star. And the DFC to Kenny Hulls. Colonel Gross is smiling because Kenneth was having a Coke at PX. Name was Paul. Are you forgetting your 5 confirmed Jerry, Sergeant? We're not. And they don't forget you when you're a little battle-weary and need a rest. At a very gay seaside community, a world-famous resort hotel has been converted for your pleasure by the Red Cross. A great place here. Sleep, eat, or what have you. Hey!
Not on your life, Clark. None of that here.
Oh, but look, Art, just a few shots.
Oh, we're here for a rest. Right, you guys?
Right. Well, all right, then how's this? I'll follow them around with a silent camera for 1 day. They won't have to say a word. Good deal?
Good deal.
An English Surrey with a fringe on top. Nice fringe. Carry you to the old swimming hole. down your flaps and slide in. Now let's see what the boys back at the base are doing. Why, they're getting a few laughs, too. We'll let the man who's handing them out tell you about it.
Hello, everybody. This is Bob, somewhere in good old Jolly Hope, laying a few eggs for the boys that really know how to lay them. Yes, sir, this is one of the happier cow pastures that we work in over there in England. And look who's dancing. You know, I used to dance with Fred Astaire, and we couldn't get girls. And right here you see Jack Pepper, through the courtesy of his draft board. His picture's a little dark, I understand, but after we were there a couple of weeks, we got a little braver and we started to work with the lights on. This is really a great, great crowd out there tonight. And I understand Rhett Butler is on the fringe of the crowd. They tell me that they stopped him from flying in those B-17s. They claimed his ears held the plane back. Nice little scene. Shows Pepper trying to get his expense money. Look at that mob. You should have heard him cheer when Francis Langford walked out and when Tony Romano played the guitar. Yes, sir, you'll never know how this bunch of boys picked up our morale.
And again, the weather breaks over the continent, and the handwriting on the wall spreads your story. You're into the third panel now. You've been out 8 days in a row and done a doubleheader over France on the 9th. This man's Air Force is piling it on. New combat wings have been added. New air divisions formed. So you're not very surprised when General Aker comes that day. Something big is up. He goes into the briefing room to confer with the old man and his staff. They call in the squadron commander, even the flight commander. What did he tell them? Your 4 squadron COs. They know, but don't talk. Just grin a little with excitement. It's something big, all right, because the bomb dumps have been getting plenty of heavy stuff lately. And a loading order came through this afternoon. Stand by. More than that, wing racks. We're really going to pile it on. And that night, as always, when you know a real dilly is coming up, you're a little restless. Out in the dispersal, you hear them winding up those engines. That's all right, ground crew. Make 'em sing. Make 'em sing good.
All right, you side.
Breakfast at 3, briefing at 4.
Okay, man. For security's sake, anyone know what the target is for today?
Stations there. Russell.
There.
Oh, we'll see. All right, sir.
What is he doing?
Penetration for this group. We've got an A+ target over here. We've got to get him.
Okay, gentlemen. Stations are at 5:05. Start engines 6:05. Taxi at 6:15. Take off 6:30. Got it? That's all.
Okay, man. Let's go get this target and we'll take the jab.
10,000 feet. Go on oxygen. Check in your station. At the designated splicer point, still over friendly territory, rendezvous with other groups. Your combat wing banks into position. Then wing after wing, as far as the eye can believe, the attack forms. It heads for its assigned targets 500 miles away. Up until this moment, your fighter escort is still on the ground, guarding its limited fuel capacity. Now flight control gives a signal to the Thunderbolts. They climb upstairs to overtake you.
Fighters, 3 o'clock low. Watch it. That should be our escort. You're right, sir. 47s. Pilot to crew. Pilot to crew. Over enemy coast. On the ball, you guys. Hey, get a load of that flag. Can't they throw it any higher than that? Where do you want to have it? In the bomb bay? Why don't you lean out and smell it?
That's right, you guys. Laugh it off. Right now, a bum joke goes better than 2 fingers of rye. Around 3 hours out, Arge looks at his watch. He knows it's time for the fighter escort to turn back. All over the ship, you watch them leave. You're really on the ball now, because you know that enemy fighters will appear any minute. They know exactly where you are. They've been watching the stratosphere condense off your wingtips, giving you away in long trails of magnificent treachery.
Okay, here they are. 9 o'clock high, enemy fighters. Same thing at 3 o'clock.
Yes, at least those vapor trails work both ways. Arch watches the enemy formations as they parallel your course. Seems obvious. They're staying out of range, going out ahead to turn in for a frontal attack high. All turrets swing about to help guard the rear. Top turrets hunt the sky above in all directions. There's some more out there. Keep your eyes peeled. Now it comes. The enemy pours in at you from every point on the dial.
Six o'clock. Level. 2 more. 5. Watch it. Get that one at 3. O'clock. High. Nine o'clock. Level. No, he's going low. Here he comes up. You got the colonel's wingman, smoking on number 4. He's going out. Stand down. Check the chute, you guys. Two boys out of the nose. There's two more. Pilot the tail. Pilot the tail. Let me know how they're doing back there. Roger. Finder, 6 o'clock. Coming through. Low. Hi. Got one out of the high squadron. Yep. No chance there. Two 190s. Hi. Somebody got one of them on the button. That jury pilot bail out. He's not walking away from it.
Still they barrel in at you. A little short on heart. Plenty long on guts, this enemy. Another 17 hit. And again you have to close the gap in the formation. And again they come. 12 o'clock high, 4 o'clock level, out of the sun, and up from the ground.
Wow.
More coming through. 5 o'clock.
You're crossing another flak area. It's heavier this time, so black and thick you can almost hear it. And it's more effective.
Shorty's been hit with number 4. Cover them all you can, everybody. Pilot to left waist. Pilot to left waist. There's another one working Shorty over. Can you help him? No can do, sir. Out of range.
Beginning of smoke screens announces the approach to the target area. The enemy's been caught off guard. He's trying to cover up. Too late. In desperation, through his own flak, the final Hun fighter makes a pass at the low squadron. Driven off. But still...
Did a fighter or flak get that ship? Flak, I think.
There it is. Flare out of the lead ship. Signal for the bomb run. This is your attack.
All right, Steve. We're on the IP. She's yours. I got her. Bomb bay doors open. Make a good run now, Steve. I'm on it.
Yes, make it count, bombardiers. They build these ships around you. Bombs away. Lead group picks out his MPI in the dock area. Let's go with the heavy stuff and the big incendiaries. The high group heads for the industrial section and hands out the same medicine. The low group turns for the adjacent airdrome. It blasts the field, the hangars, and repair shops with hundreds of deadly anti-personnel bombs. A nice pattern, Bombardier. Good deal. You can't hear what's going on down there, 5 miles below you. But marshalling yards and chemical tanks, ships and warehouses, spare engines and ball bearing factories are disintegrating in molten chaos. It's thunder out of the Alleghenies, Adolf. You said Americans were soft and decadent? Well, here's a red, white, and blue headache that'll help you change your mind. The bomb bay doors closed. You take a last look at the target area. The smoke from its burning debris rises 16,000 feet into the air. Or flat. The aim's still good down there. How about this trip home? Is it going to be rough?
Pilot to crew. Pilot to crew. Well, you guys, we're over an hour out. They haven't come back at us yet. Looks like we're lucky this trip. Enemy fighters. 11 o'clock high. Another 1 o'clock high. Coming level to 3. 4 on 7 is 8 o'clock high. I don't want it. ME 110, 1 o'clock high. ME at 2 o'clock. I got him. I'll say you did. You're bailing out either. Another 110 at 10 o'clock. He's yours, kid. There he goes. He's my pigeon.
Staffel commanders throw their pilots in the formation with suicide orders. That's what they get. Formation is tighter than ever. You're not sparing ammunition. You're knocking them down like mallet. One more. And another. He's through.
Here's one right behind him, Steve.
Another. 2 in a row for the boys up forward.
him all right.
Get this 110. Pull her up, Art. Pull her up.
FW, 3 o'clock. Hey, kill him, Joe. Hold your fire on that 190. That's a spit on its tail. Yeah, our fighter cover's got here. Ah, boy, spit. Yee! I feel it, Jerry. It's all for the day, pal. Look at that spit right up down. Oh, you sweetheart. Good night, sweetheart. Till we meet tomorrow. Good night, sweetheart. Sleep will banish sorrow.
Your shadow on the undercast. The pilot's rainbow. Mission's end, but not the end of the battle. Fighting men from Maine to California still have a long, tough rainbow to travel. But they're looking the enemy right between his eyes. They're fighting him the American way, their American way of life. Enemy of America, look at these men. They're not going to lose, brother.
Aviation, the art of aeronautics, began with the dreamers, inventors, and daredevils who dared to defy gravity. The journey of aviation was nurtured by pioneers like the Wright brothers, whose first flight marked a historic milestone. The role of aircrafts in world wars was groundbreaking, dramatically changing warfare strategies. This initiated a technological evolution in aviation, transforming the simplistic wings of a biplane into the thunderous roar of jet engines. Let's journey through the ages of aviation. Behind every great aircraft, there were great minds. These visionaries, like Sir Frank Whittle, the innovator of the turbojet engine, redefined air travel. Then there's Skunkworks' Kelly Johnson, the genius behind the SR-71 Blackbird. His designs combined speed, stealth, and power, crafting machines that dominated the heavens. The contributions of these pioneers have left an indelible mark on the canvas of aviation, shaping the course of history and inspiring generations of engineers and aviators. Each epoch in aviation history gave birth to extraordinary aircrafts, each with their own unique features and roles. The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird was a marvel of speed and stealth. The F-105 Thunderchief, a supersonic fighter bomber, was vital in the Vietnam War. The P-51 Mustang, a long-range fighter, was critical in World War II. The P-47 Thunderbolt, a heavyweight fighter, was used extensively in the same war. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Warthog, is a close air support icon. The Messerschmitt Me-262 marked a leap forward in aviation technology. Each of these game changers were instrumental in their eras, and their legacies still resonate today. Beyond the game changers, there are those that have transcended their practical roles to become icons. The Concorde was not just an aircraft, it was a supersonic symbol of luxury and speed. The B-52 Stratofortress, a strategic bomber, is an icon of power and resilience. These magnificent machines and others like them have become much more than just aircrafts. They are enduring icons that encapsulate the audacious spirit, the relentless innovation, and the boundless ambition that define the world of aviation. For more amazing aerial footage, and to join us in this incredible journey, check out the DroneScapes YouTube channel.
If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.